Should you be playing Overwatch 2? And specifically, should you be playing Overwatch 2 if you never played Overwatch 1? That is what I'm going to be looking at in this video as someone who I played Overwatch 1, but only the very early beta. Enough to give them suggestions, which they all ignored, so I quit playing. Ironically, Overwatch 2 has completed every suggestion that I made for the game to improve it, so I guess that's a win for me. So I decided let's play Overwatch 2 and see how it does with these changes. So the first question you have to ask yourself when you want to start playing a game is it fun? That's the core question, right? Everything else doesn't matter. If the game is not fun, then it's not worth playing. So is Overwatch 2 fun? Maybe. There's definitely some issues that are currently going on with the game that make it not a whole lot of fun, but those are like launch day issues, so it'll remain to see if they are going to be fixed. My main launch day issue or gripe is that the game's matchmaking is abysmal. I've had so many games that I've played already where it's so one-sided, it's clear one side is way better than the other side. And in a game like this where it's, only PvP for the most part, that's unfun. If your players you're playing against are way better than you, you're not going to have any fun because you're not going to be able to do anything. If you're way better than them, sure, that's kind of fun that you just absolutely get to stomp them, but that gets boring after a while because there's no challenge, and of course it is no fun and not fair for the other team. And that, like I said, that is the number one gripe I'm having, is a lot of matches I've had are completely imbalanced. The other main gripe that I run into, and again, this is kind of a, hey, it's the first day launch kind of thing, is a lot of people don't understand how all the heroes work and don't understand quite how to play the game, and that's normal for launch day, but it creates frustrating scenarios where, like me, who usually only plays support, I can't do a whole lot in the game if my team's not doing anything, because supports really need their team to support. Those two things aside, which probably will mellow out as the game goes on, people will learn how to play, less people will be joining the game, because when it starts, everyone joins all at once, so it should kind of mellow out on the skill balance and the matchmaking. So saying those two things kind of mellow out and do get fixed, I would say that this game is fun. When everything is working like it's supposed to and you are matched against a team of equal skill, it is an absolute blast to play. So, if you want to play, the first thing you're going to have to recognize is that there is a huge roster of characters to learn. And while that's usually a fun thing, and it is fun to play with a character you've never played before and kind of learn them, it also means that there is a huge barrier to entry because you have to learn each hero and what they do in order to play the game effectively. League of Legends has the same issue where when you go to play League of Legends for the first time, I think they have, like 80 champions now? Probably 100? Like, it's no fun to have to sit there and read a dictionary of every single champion and how they work, how they play, how they interact with each other, not to mention all the items you have to buy and all that. That is definitely not fun. And I kind of get that vibe from Overwatch. Like I said, I played one in just the beta, so I recognized a few of the heroes and what they could do, but the new champions, I had no idea what they could do, so I had to sit there and read what they could do, how they worked, because you have to be able to play around that. Even minor things matter, like the character that I'm playing here, one of her passive abilities allows her to climb up walls. So that allows her to get into areas you wouldn't expect her to be able to get into. And one of her main abilities lets her teleport through walls, which in any other game would feel like cheating, and granted in this game it kind of feels like cheating too, but that's beside the point. Also, her basic attack you see me throwing there does almost no damage, but if you manage to hit a critical hit with it, it can take down even the beefiest characters in just a few hits. So not knowing how that character works and just letting her auto attack at you because it doesn't do a whole lot of damage can quickly turn south, so you have to know every character inside and out. And I think the main issue, especially with this character, like I said, her feeling very powerful, it's power creep, right? It's an issue every single game has. I know I brought up League of Legends, but the same thing happened in Blizzard's other game, Heroes of the Storm, where as games develop, characters become a little bit more powerful, they kind of have unique ideas, or they want to experiment with something new with their characters, which is great, but you end up releasing these characters that are absolutely monsters of overpoweredness compared to the original characters that were in the game. Take, for example, Mercy, one of the original characters in this game. She has huge healing and kind of okay damage, but you can't switch between the two. Meanwhile, this character can do huge healing and can do massive damage and can make people invulnerable and can teleport through walls and can climb through walls. Like, it's outrageous, the power creep. So will they nerf her? Probably. Will it come in line? Probably. Will the next champion they release be grossly overpowered? Probably. Okay, that's enough negativity for a second. Let's talk about some of the positives of Overwatch 2. Oh wait, before we can talk about the positive, let's talk about one more negative that's super frustrating, and that is you can't even play the game right now. Half the time when you try and log in, the servers are broken. So if you're watching videos and getting super excited to play the game, make sure you temper those expectations, because you're probably not going to be able to play it. It takes forever to get into, and then when you log out, you're not getting back in. There's all sorts of errors. They are saying they're fixing it, but Blizzard's had smooth launches across other games. Most notably World of Warcraft. They figured out how to launch World of Warcraft, little known issue, where people on game day can come in droves. The fact that they haven't done that here, I know some people have blamed DDoS or DDoS attacks, but it almost feels like they didn't expect as many people to play the game as ours, so they didn't have enough server space, which kind of seems like a poor move on their part. And it's possible that it's going to temper down again, that less people will play, and eventually they'll find their audience, you'll be able to log in. But I know one of the most frustrating things when you're really excited to play a game is not being able to play it, so temper that expectation 100%. Okay, enough negativity. On to the positives. The number one positive thing that I love that they changed about this game, and that you will absolutely love, I know, is that you can pick what role you want to play, and when you pick that role, you are locked into that role for the entirety of the match. What this means is, for someone like me who's a support main, I love playing support characters, means I always get to play support if that's what I'm feeling. If I want to play support, I can get into a game and make sure that I'm going to be the support character. It also means the opposite. On the rare time that I don't feel like being a support character and I just want to, unwind and deal some damage, that I can guarantee myself that I'm going to be the damage character, and that is a phenomenal addition to this game. As well as that you're locked into that choice means that when inevitably someone starts raging or having problems, they can't just say, well, I know I signed up for support, but I wanted a short queue so that I can start playing, but you all are bad, so I'm going to start playing damage because someone needs to play damage. It means that they can't make that change on the fly. They're locked into that choice for the rest of the match. Now, if you don't like that, good news, they also include game modes where that's not a thing. They gave us the best of both worlds. You're not forced into one or the other. If you want the flexibility and be able to do meme teams of all tanks or changes on the fly, you have that capability. I really like that they gave us all the options. They said, you can do it this way, you can do it that way, you can have both. And that is such a good thing that they gave us. So that is the number one thing that I love about this game. Another unexpected feature that I absolutely love with this game is the highlights. Now, play of the game is still broken. If you've ever played Overwatch, you know that sometimes the play of the game, same thing with Call of Duty, is nonsensical, where it's like one guy getting a kill, and why is that play of the game when other people played way better? That's still broken. I don't think they'll ever get that 100%. But it also takes clips of your game. The example I have is when I'm playing as the support character I was just talking about, who has the awesome headshot ability. When you get a medal for doing something awesome, like a sharpshooter where you land a headshot and take out an opponent from a long distance, it automatically clips that and turns it into an own personal library of clips for you. So when you want to make clips for other content, or you just want to go back and relive some awesome things you did, the game automatically saves that, and so far, it has done a great job of saving all the moments that I have wanted to clip. And not only does that save me time, of course, for making social media, making content and all that, but it's really cool that Blizzard's added this feature that they say, hey, you did something really cool in that game and we want to recognize that so that you can go back and look at that really cool thing you did, or, share it with your friends. I think that's a really, really cool feature on their part. Another thing that I have to rave about that I really enjoy is it feels like there's a ton of game modes. I've only touched the quick play. I know that there's arcade, which offers a ton of other game modes. There's a free-for-all mode. There's a whole bunch of other stuff I haven't even touched yet, but just playing the quick play there's enough difference between like pushing the payload, trying to capture a point, or their new mode where you have like a robot pushing back and forth on both sides. It's kind of like payload mixed with capture the point. It's a really fun game mode. I never feel like it's getting stale. If you're playing for hours on end, you're getting enough variety of maps, enough variety of game modes that it doesn't get stale. I'd compare this to like Heroes of the Storm, which I have played a ton of, where there's only like 1 or 2 good maps and there's only one, play mode. They eventually added ARAM, but there's only one main play mode. It gets boring after a while. You play 1 or 2 matches and you're like, I don't want to play anymore because it's just going to be the same thing again and again and again. I know I had a lot of negative things to say, but I also have so many positive things to say. Just a moment ago, you saw a flash on the screen was the stats, and I love that they keep track of the stats of the character, and the stats are so meaningful. You can look at how much damage you've done, how much healing you've done, how accurate your shots are, how many of your specials you've wasted, all sorts of things that are fun to look at, but more importantly, if you're looking to improve, that's the key, that you can look at it even during game. You can say, okay, I'm missing a lot of my shots, so I need to work on my accuracy. Or it'll say, I've missed almost all of my specials, so I need to do something with that. It's a great way for improvement, and I think that's just, again, a nice touch that they've included that really allows you to improve as much as you want to put in the effort to improve. Now, I know I originally put it as a con in this video that there's a ton of champions, and that knowledge of having to learn what each champion does is huge, and it's no small joke of an investment. But once you get to know those characters, having that wide roster is actually a huge pro to the game. Not only do all the player characters really feel like they play differently, but being able to switch them up on the fly gives you a whole different angle of strategy. And let me give you an example of that. There's actually a game that I recently won that was really exhilarating, because I started with this character you see here, Kiriko. She's kind of my main right now. I was playing with her, and the team got really adjusted to how I was playing, and they started targeting me because they figured out how I was playing, who I would teleport to, and basically they would get one person down to low health to cause me to teleport over to them and start healing them to draw me out to kill me. And that was really great counterplay on their part. So rather than just adjusting my playstyle with this character, I was able to swap to a completely different character that plays completely differently and shake it up. Now their strategy that they'd come together and made no longer worked. And that ability to change it on the fly gives you so many opportunities for your team to do so much, and that characters can interact with each other and mix their abilities too. Gives you an infinite number of combinations that work well together and can have this great synergy. Gotta use that buzzword. They have a good synergy. And since people can't stack the same character over and over, which again is a suggestion I made to them in the beta that they ignored and have now made, it is such a good change. That means that only 1/3 of the roster is in effect at any time, at most, right? You've got 5v5, everyone has to select a different character on the same team. It means a combination of potentially 10 different characters, 30-ish characters in the game. But you see a wide variety. There's only a few characters I can think of that I hardly ever see, and even then it's because they're situational. So, like, I've been playing for 3 days, give or take, and I've seen the hamster character maybe once, I think, and that was in one match. I've seen Ashe only a few times as well. So there are a few characters that aren't getting a whole lot of love, but for the most part, everyone's picking every character, and that's how you know you've got a good balance of characters, is when everyone's picking every single character and playing through different ones. Now, again, that might have something to do with a lot of new players are coming in and they're trying out new heroes for the first time and things like that, certainly, but I think it's also healthy to see a lot of people experimenting and trying other characters as well. Now, something that I can't put into the good or bad category yet, something that remains to be seen, is, from what I've heard, they don't want you to focus as much on individual wins and losses. In a lot of games, especially like in ranked mode, after you win or lose, you see your rank go up or down. And that causes a lot of people to have a lot of toxicity, that when they're losing, they know their rank's going to go down, they have to see that at the end, and they get really, really toxic really, really fast. In an attempt to curb that, instead they've done a system where you will only update, and it'll only show your update after 7 wins, or 20 losses. So what this means is if you've won 6 matches and you've lost 15, your rank is going to be the same as when you started until you hit that 7th one or that 20th loss. And the idea is that, each individual win or lose doesn't matter as much as when you hit, 7 wins or 20 losses, you've had a significant change. In theory, that should work pretty well. I know I personally don't like that because I do like to see my rank go up or down, at the end of every match, but I like the theory behind it. But from my understanding is that your skill-based matchmaking doesn't update until that updates as well, which means if you're losing a lot, if you're at that 15th loss and no wins, you're still not updated. You got to suffer through 5 more matches before that's going to update, and that's going to create some really, really bad times for people who get put in the wrong rank, or skill-based matchmaking. They got carried a few too many times as they got bumped up, and now they need to get knocked down. That sort of thing. I'm really hesitant to see how that works, and maybe I may be wrong. I may not understand fully how that system works, but at the time of making this video, that is how I understand the system to work, and I see some flaws with that. And no system is going to be perfect, right? We look at, again, I know I've referenced it a few times, if we look at Call of Duty, there's skill-based matchmaking updates like every 5 or 7 matches, and so now you have people who tank a few matches so they get put in with players who are way worse than them, so they can rock them for 7 matches, and then they dive 7 more matches so they can get the clips for the content and that sort of thing as well. And that is definitely not something you want in the game, because that is like, of all the complaints of Call of Duty, that's probably the #1 complaint that gets brought up in skill-based matchmaking. It's not just, the pros who are upset because they're not playing against other pros or things like that. It's a lot of newer players or people who aren't as good who are upset about people who are smurfing. So is there a possibility of smurfing in this game? It sounds like there might be a little bit, but it does sounds like their goal is to try and eliminate that as well, which is a good thing. I think smurfing is an absolutely terrible thing. I definitely hate it when people smurf. I think it ruins the game, so the less smurfing, the better. That also brings me to my last point that I can't really touch on yet because I don't know how this works, and I really hope that it does work how it's supposed to, and that is pre-mades. I really hope that we don't see a point where pre-made groups are being put up against solo players, because that is always massively unfun and unfair. Again, I'll reference Heroes of the Storm, where I only play as a solo player and I get matched up against teams all the time who have way more coordination than anyone else does, and it makes it super imbalanced and fun. I haven't fought any pre-made groups yet, and I really hope that stays the standard, that solo players are against solo players and pre-mades fight pre-mades to avoid coordination issues and imbalance. All of this being said, at the end of the day, Overwatch 2 is fun if you can get in and if you can learn the characters. There is a little bit of knowledge check to get into the game, there is a little bit of frustration to get into the game, but once you get into it, if you've never played Overwatch, it is a ton of fun to play, and I highly recommend it. It's free to play, so you can give it a shot without any risk. There is a shop and microtransactions, but you don't need any of that. Just download the game, give it a try, and see for yourself, is this a game that I want to play?